we've got this home planet that gives us life, right? Like our Mother Earth. And so, asking people to really advocate on behalf of the nurturer that nurtures us. What Mothers Out Front wants to focus on is, shutting down fossil fuel infrastructure and going towards renewable energy structure. I think one of the things that's so hard is that, for one, climate change is so overwhelming, and there's so many different ways to look at it. We're hearing all these reports that say we have to cut emissions now. We have to transition to renewables and, become so much more energy efficient way quicker than we had thought before. So you really start to look at the environment through lenses of what does that mean socially for a lot of us.
I was really scared. I was alone, and I thought, I just need to find people who care about this. And I found people in my community and started working locally. And then one day, I was at a rally that I had helped organize, and a woman named Kelsey Worth came up to me, and she said, "This is great, and I don't see a whole lot of moms here. And I am really, really worried about my kids' future. I cannot be the only mother who feels this way. And I think we should start reaching out to moms, finding moms, because I think together we could be a really, really powerful force for change."
When you look into, past movements and where they've come from, and really all the biggest social change movements like civil rights, women's suffrage, all those kinds of things, they all started in grassroots efforts where people just started getting together on their own. And then it grew slowly.
There are lots of people doing amazing work about climate, but this feels like a winning strategy. This feels like the moms know how to take their truth to decision makers, how to call out that too often the decisions are about profit, not about our kids and communities, and that we really have a theory that there's more moms than there are people making bad energy decisions if all the moms get together.
We as a force need to become enough of a political threat that they have to listen to us, and they have to stop listening to corporations.
One of the many amazing things about Mothers Out Front is that every day women teach other women how to play a leadership role in their communities, how to step outside their comfort zones and be leaders, and that leadership will go not only in climate in our communities, but in racial justice and in economic justice and in just neighborhood and civic life. And so my vision is that we bring in from the 23,000 moms that are engaged in our movement right now to hundreds of thousands of moms, and that all those moms have a chance to be leaders in their communities.
I think one of the things that is, our greatest challenge and reward is to empower mothers to use their voice and their role as a mother and have that be equal to everybody at the table. We're not asking anybody to be a lawyer, a planner, an engineer. That's not their specialty. Their specialty is knowing, what is it going to take for my child to grow up to be healthy, and what is it going to take for my grandchildren to live in an environment that resembles the one that I had growing up or my grandparents had.
I went in and I actually voted for something and it was decided on, and now we're doing something about it. So we're doing what I care about. We're working towards our community's well-being. So we are the experts on our community experience. So when we go talk to a representative, we know what's happening right here in our own backyard or at our own park, or or we see what's going on with the temperature in the heat islands in the city where it's like 10 plus degrees hotter in one area or something like that. When you go in there, your representative is supposed to be representing you. So you're really in charge there.
And that's one thing that I think we have a huge benefit of being a mothers group is that mothers are in every pocket of every city, every neighborhood. It doesn't matter race or class. It's a unifying call to action. I mean, if we're all working on the same thing, that's really where you're going to get that big impact. And all of a sudden you don't feel so alone that you're just, fighting this giant problem when you see that there's people all across the country doing that same exact fight. I mean, we're talking about organizing, let's be honest, like the busiest people on the planet, right? Like mothers. And so we understand that, a lot of them are juggling jobs and childcare. And so at times we just call on them to shirt up and show up. And not only, at rallies and at marches, but city council meetings, anywhere that we want to make sure that there's a presence of everybody knowing that like the mothers are watching you. So one of the biggest things that we do is conduct trainings and provide trainings for, anybody to step up and learn what it's like to be an advocate. We start with personal narrative storytelling, and then we really teach people how to articulate the story of who they are and the story of what their community is going through, and then what is the direct ask, and that can always be tailored to whatever situation's at hand. When you have a mother that comes up and says, I'm worried about the future of my child, and who can really argue with that? It takes it out of that climate change environmentalist realm and puts it more into a really personal space of, we know these reports are coming out, and and we have a vested interest in the future. So
I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I live with my husband and my dog, and I decided if I was going to be a stay-at-home mom for the meantime, I would get involved in something I really believed in. I was pretty brave before I had my daughter, but once I had her, it's like whatever fears that I did have that were stopping me before were no longer big enough to stop me from doing the things that I believed in anymore, because I believed in, making a sustainable world for my daughter.
There's been a couple of public speaking opportunities and rallies for members of our team to, write a whole speech and stand up on the Capitol steps in front of like 100 people with cameras on them and, truly speak their truth.
So when I found Mothers Out Front, one of the first things that happened was they asked me to speak at the 2018 Rise for Climate rally. And public speaking has definitely been one of my big fears. I've never been good at it. I always have this like crazy adrenaline rush while it's happening, and I'm very shaky, and then I get insecure because of that, and then it turns into this big like snowball in my head where the entire speech I'm panicking. But when they said they needed somebody, I was like, okay, well, someone has to do it, and I'm Layla's mom, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway, even though I'm scared.
My name is Jessica Bull, and I'm here to represent Mothers Out Front, an organization that mobilizes mothers and grandmothers and caregivers of all kinds to advocate for their community in the name of climate justice.
You see them, not thinking that they can do it, right? Like, who am I? It goes back to like that moral authority, like getting them to understand that like, no, your voice is so legit, and you deserve to be on this Capitol steps.
We all, worked together to write our speeches, and we had a wonderful teacher helping us, because all the women involved were so supportive, both before and during and after the speech. It really kept me going so that I would have that experience. That's what bravery is, right? I mean, it's not being afraid, it's being afraid and doing it anyways. And I think that's what being a mom helped me do in general.
We approach a lot of these issues by showing all the different effects that climate change has on families, on people.
The story is this: there was a pipeline plan that actually for now is dead, to go through my town. And what I found out during that project, which was called Access Northeast, was that they were going to put it through my kids' camp. And I was like, oh, hell no. So it happens to also be like a mass Audubon sanctuary. And so, I really thought about that. I thought about like them like tearing down the trees.
Personally, I've been lucky to know a little cabin in Montana all my life, and always assumed it would be left to the children and grandchildren of our family. 2 years ago, I learned what fire suppression meant and what it meant to protect our cabin from the terrible forest fires that were sweeping the West. And so I super thought that all the kids in my family would grow up and play there as I have, and I'm not so sure that's going to be the case.
Parents, more than anyone else, feel this urgency because we're thinking about you realize at some point oh, I need a save for a college fund for my kid, and then you're like, what's the world going to be like when they're going to college? So I need to work that much harder for her to be able to live that life and that love without guilt, and to exist in a world where it's sustainable to exist and it's sustainable to love and procreate and have a family, because so much love comes from having a family,